Okay, so just keep yourself in mute, guys, so that there won't be any noise. So in the last session on Friday, I've gone through the few of the database concepts like MySQL, typical queries, as well as how to take the backup of it. Okay, how to dump the database. Okay, and before that on Thursday we have gone through the application server called Apache Tomcat and how its installation, its deployment, everything we have gone through it. And also in the last session I have gone through the how to deploy a typical application end to end, okay, manually, that too. So first what we need, first we deployed the backend and then the front end part, okay, and how we started and how we verified the application. So entire stuff we are taking one of the application lead up as an example and we verified end to end. Okay, now the thing is, the industry is expecting you to automate this entire process. They don't want you to be do all this I mean, they don't want you to be implemented all these tasks manually. Okay, they don't accept you to do it manually because doing it manually is a completely time consumption process. Can you see this? If you do it manual, right? So the manual deployment process is a completely time consumption process and error prone, okay, and maintenance issues. So maintenance will be a big problem in case if you do the manually. And also, like it is expensive because they need to recruit more engineers to do the deployments. Think about the 100 parts are there, they have to do it every day 10 times into 200 servers. Think about the efforts which is required to perform that task. Okay, it will be huge. So that's the reason they want some sort of a smart solution. Okay, the smart solution will be deployment automation. So somebody should automate the entire process with the help of the technology. Okay, so don't put the manual efforts, use the technology. So that's where automation comes into the picture. Okay, and this can be done either of the ways, either with the help of scripting or with any of the DevOps tools. Okay, so this DevOps tools concept came recently. Okay, and I mean, we don't have any kind of tools like Chef, Puppet and all 5-6 years before. Okay, so earlier people used to do this kind of a deployment, or it can be deployment or anything, okay, used to do with some scripting, because scriptings were there from the very long when the programming languages started. Okay, so people used to do the things with the scripting. Then slowly, gradually, what happened, that more into the DevOps tools. Okay, so why it is more into DevOps tools, what is the problem in the scripting, why they're more to the these things. Okay, all of them will see it later. Okay, so first my consideration is to how they used to do the deployment using scripting. Okay, that's the first thing. Let's come from the very old background. Okay, how they used to do the deployment using scripting. Then once you have a good understanding of scripting part, okay, and once you know how to do the deployment using scripting, then we move into the tools. Okay, how do they use the tools to do the same deployment, right? So with the scripting, right, let's choose one of the scripting, guys. Okay, bash shell scripting. Okay, so this is the most popular scripting, guys. So you can use any of the scripting, doesn't matter. They don't enforce you, they don't restrict you to use something. It's all up to you. But most of the people, if you are in a kind of a Java application background, okay, so they'll go for the bash shell, because most of the open source Java applications are deployed on Linux or Unix flavor operating system. Okay, so if you are trying to automate anything on the Linux or Unix flavor operating system, the best way is use the shell script. This is the most best. I mean, this is a really best way, as well as it requires very little effort compared to any other scripting language like a Perl, Ruby and all. You have to learn end to end. But with bash shell, right, if you already know the Linux operating system, okay, writing a shell script is pretty easy. Okay, so that's the reason most of the people choose the shell scripting. And even the people, they expect you to have a good hands-on on shell scripting. Okay, so that's the reason for this training I have chosen shell scripting as our scripting platform to automate our process. Okay, so let's get into this stuff. Shell scripting. Okay, now when I say scripting, right, you might be having a big question mark in your mind. What could be the difference between a scripting and a programming? This is the most popular question asked in interviews. This can be asked to anyone, developer, a build engineer, tester, who's. What is the difference between a scripting and a programming? Okay, so when it comes to technically nothing but if you wanted to understand a technical format, okay, what you programming is your developer friends, the Java developer, .NET developers, they are writing the programming, guys. Okay, they are doing the actual programming. They are not doing any scripting. Okay, so why I'm saying there is a program is the programming is a kind of a end-to-end full tightly coupled language. Okay, it's a typecasted language. What do you mean by typecasted, tightly coupled? Nothing but they have to define each and everything. Okay, like example, I would say if you know any other programming language, they have to define the data types like integer, string, float, blah blah blah. Everything will be restricted. Okay, and they can create some objects. Okay, and they can follow some oops concepts. So those are all possible in the programming language. But whatever I explained to you right now, typecasting, okay, and objects and oops concepts are not possible in the scripting, impossible in the scripting. Okay, and the second thing is, the most thing is, programming is a compile based language. Okay, what do you mean by compile based languages? See, typically any C or Java, okay, or C sharp, right, all these programming languages will be having a compiler. So they have, the compiler will compile the code and it will give you the bytecode. Okay, and this bytecode you deploy it. Am I right? This is what the typical procedure we have seen is for the Java language in the build automation of Ant and Maven session. Okay, right, this is what the typical programming language concept. But when it comes to the scripting, okay, so these are called interpreter languages. Interpreter languages. Okay, what do you mean by interpreter languages is, interpreter nothing but what, which converts a line by line. Okay, like executes code line by line. What do you mean by this is, there is no compilation, no compilation, no bytecode, no bytecode. What do you mean by this is, you will run the source code itself directly. There is no compilation, nothing. Okay, you run the source code file directly. So that's called the interpreter language. Okay, all these scripting languages are interpreter languages, remember guys. Okay, you won't have any compilation in the scripting language. Okay, but when it comes to programming languages like C, Java, C sharp and all, they will be having a compiler and they generate a bytecode, and this bytecode you deploy. But when it comes to interpreter languages, you directly execute the source code. That's it. Okay, there is nothing like a compiler and all. So this is what the important technical difference between scripting and programming. Okay, now typically you might be thinking, okay, why can't developer use the scripting to write the code? I'll tell you one thing guys, in scripting, objects creation, sessions creation, typecasting, okay, oops concept like multiple inheritance, the all this stuff cannot be implemented with the interpreter languages, which is impossible. They don't support, first of all. Okay, but those can be done with the help of this. So typically the compile based language used for the business applications. What do you mean by business applications is, your developers are doing some coding, right, for some applications. Okay, it can be banking, financial, anything, any business application, a website, a web service. So compile based languages are required for that. Okay, when it comes to the interpreter language like a scriptings and all, will be used for system automation. System automation, nothing but if you wanted to automate anything on your operating system, your server. Okay, so you better use this. You might be thinking, can we use the compile based language to system automate? Yes, of course you can use it, but for system automation, if you use the compile based language, right, the performance will be degraded. Okay, and it will be pretty slow. And the third thing is, it is really difficult to write the code for the system automation using the programming language. But using interpreter language, writing the code for system automation is pretty easier. Okay, so that's the reason we are the operational engineers. We are the DevOps guys. They can call it DevOps engineer, build engineer, anything. Okay, we have to write the code in an interpreter language only, not in a business compile based language, because we are the system engineers. Okay, the system engineers do the development only in the system interpreter language, which are the scripting language. So that's the reason people expects the guy who is coming with this skill set should know at least one scripting language. That can be any scripting language which I mentioned over here. Okay, so now let's get into the actual shell scripting part. Okay, so shell scripting, okay, when I say shell scripting, okay, scripting anyway, it's an interpreter language. Then what is a shell? Okay, so shell is, it's a interface between, okay, interface between you, your inputs and OS. Okay, so I hope you remember this diagram. uh, Okay, think about this is what your hardware. Okay, kernel, OS, layer. This is what your operating system is defined, right? Shell. Okay, and after that, finally, if you are using any Windows operating system, and this is going to be your graphical user interface, the upper layer, GUI. Okay, now in Windows and all, I mean, you can see the GUI, but for Linux or Unix operating systems, mostly like they expose till shell only. They don't put the GUI, right? So you have to work on shell here. Okay, so you have to work over here, not on the GUI. If it is a Windows operating system, you can work on the GUI. Even in Windows also, you can work on shell. See, in Windows, the shell we call as a command prompt, CMD, or you can call it as a batch prompt. Okay, so in Linux we call it as a shell prompt. And this shell, we have a different shells for the Linux guys. Okay, for Windows it's only one shell, command prompt, DOS prompt. This is also called DOS prompt. Okay, for Windows. But when it comes to the Linux, this shell, we have different types of shells. Okay, so the most popular shell was the bash shell. Okay, and similarly there is a one more shell called corn shell. Okay, C shell nothing but C language shell. Okay, and there many are there guys. Okay, I didn't remember most of them, but the most popular one is the bash shell. Okay, this is also called Bourne shell. Okay, bash shell is also called Bourne shell, right? So the 80% of the operating system it contains. So we are using CentOS operating system at the moment. CentOS Linux operating system. This is what our operating system, right? Where is it? Yeah, is it our operating system? No, not this one. Yeah, this is what ifconfig. Okay, uname minus a will tell you which type of operating system. It is a 64-bit operating system. Okay, and this is a CentOS one, right? So this is what my operating system. Now this operating system is having a bash shell. If you wanted to know which shell you have it, you type ls space -a. You can find bash. Can you see bash history, bash file, bash profile, right? So if you see this nothing but it's a bash shell. You are in a bash shell right now. Now we need to write the script on this bash shell. So that's the reason I call this as a bash shell scripting. Okay, so you might be thinking, if you have a corn shell, do I need to learn the corn shell scripting? Not required guys. 99%, 90 to 98 to 99%, all the shell scripts are same. Okay, don't worry about it, right? So only few syntaxes will be differs, but you don't have to worry about it. Now let's try to work on this. So typically a shell scripting is nothing but, okay, it's a combination of Linux commands plus control structures. What do you mean? Linux commands you know anyway. What is a Linux command? It's just a command to feed some input and get some output, right? So plus control structures. What do you mean by control structures is, see, if I ask you to print the disk free space, okay, for once you run one command. If I ask you to print the disk free space of multiple machines at a time into 110 machines, okay, so for that you have to run the command n number of times. Instead of that, I can write a simple script to get the disk free space of multiple machines, right? So to do that, I have to repeat through a loop. Okay, a loop is called a control structure. Okay, a if condition is called a control structure, right? Right, so a if else is called a control structure. A very, I mean, all this we combine with the Linux commands and prepare and put it in a file both together. Okay, write it in a file, and this file we call as the shell script. That's it. And this shell script typically we extend with a .sh format. Okay, I mean .sh extension. You put with the .sh extension, right? And again, when you're writing a script, right, the first line should be /! Okay, bin sh. What do you mean by this is your default shell. See, this is an interpreter, right? You need an interpreter. So the interpreter will be installed in the bin location. If you want, you can cross check whether it is there or not. cd/bin. Okay, that so many are there. Let's say, okay guys, can you see sh anywhere? Here is sh, nothing but you have a shell prompt available, I mean shell interpreter available. So if you put this line in your first line of your script, okay, then you don't need to write the sh extension. It will default to take the shell script base. Okay, extension is not mandatory. Okay, if you provide extension, it will try to take you to the sh prompt. Okay, if you don't provide, right, then the first line should be written like this, right? Because tomorrow in your Linux operating system you can have multiple shells, bash shell, conch shell, and some other shells. Okay, you have to explicitly mention which shell you want to execute it, right? Right now in most of the machines it will contain only one shell. Right now we have a bash shell, so whether you write it or don't write it, not a problem. It will default takes the bash shell, and the line which you write it in the first line, right, this line we call as the shebang line. Okay, Shaban, not Shaban. I didn't remember the spelling of it, but this is another interview question. People definitely ask you, what do you call the first line of a shell script, which is called Shaban line? If you want, I can just Google it and I can tell you what exactly. First line of shell script, something Shaban. Where it is gone? Google. Okay. Can you see this starting script with hash exclamation is called shebang? Yeah, it's correct. It's called a shebang line. It is nothing but absolute path of a bash interpreter. Can you see this? It is path of an interpreter. So SH is your interpreter for you. Okay. So that's what I'm trying to explain to you. So yeah. Now let's get into the machine and do the practical scripts. Okay. So I'm creating a directory called mkdir. So we'll work all the scripts out. Okay, so let's try to open a new script, hello world or hello.sh or first script. So typically we use the VA editor in Linux, as you know it because we already gone through it. Any file if you want to write or edit, you have to make use of the VA editor. So open the VA editor hello.sh and get into the insert mode, press I. Now here you can write the code. Okay, whether you write or don't write the shebang line, it doesn't make sense. Okay, I mean you don't worry about it. Okay, it's not mandatory because we have only one shell at the moment. Then if you want to print something on the console, echo is the first command. Typically, if you're learning a C language, right? What do you do in the first day of the programming language training? You learn how to print hello world, right? Simple thing. So same thing. I'm writing a simple script to print hello world. That's it. Save this file. My script is ready. You might be thinking there is no main function, no package importing, nothing is there, no curly braces. That's the reason people say shell scripting is a much easier one, very lightweight one. Okay, you don't have to worry about very strict syntaxes and all. Okay, it's purely lightweight scripting language. You can just write the commands, write it in the lines. That's it. You leave it. And now, how to execute this file? There are two ways you can execute it. One is use the interpreter sh hello.sh. This is one way. Enter. Can you see the output here? Hello world. Next, the other is /hello.sh. What do you mean by this is you execute the script will execute by itself, okay, with a shell interpreter. But to execute in this way, the script should have a execute permission. Okay, so can you see this permission in it? Nothing but the script doesn't have execute permissions. Do you have execute permission here? X is not there, so we need to provide that. I hope you remember we use the chmod command to give the execute permissions. Okay, 7 nothing but full, which is rwx, then hello.sh. Now you see, did you get the execute permissions? Okay, once you get the execute permissions, now you run it. That's it. So two ways you can run. Either when you're running with the interpreter as such, you don't require execute permission. But when you're running with itself, /, then you would need it. Okay. So next. Sorry guys. Your network has been reestablished. Network has been Guys, can you hear me? Something wrong with my connection. Can you hear me? Say yes or no.
It is showing that it is showing that the organizer is experiencing a technical issue. If
No, that
he
should be
is not
fine.
rejoining, it's
Yeah.
going to close.
Ignore that, but can you hear me properly? Let me ping you guys. Can you hear me? Something wrong. Guys, can you hear me? Gopi, Jagan, Hemant. Okay, yeah, thanks so much. That's what I'm asking, whether you can hear
Yeah,
me
I
or not.
can. Sometimes it is getting stuck.
Okay, maybe it's some network issue. So, yeah, I'm just talking about like, our first script, hello script. Okay, now, how
Yeah,
I'll,
you can hear.
yeah, how I'm going to train this is because I hope like, most of you guys might be gone through some programming language in your curriculum, right? Engineering or computer science, whichever, doesn't matter which engineering background you are or which computer science background you are, you might be gone through some programming language. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, because I will not go into details of each and every particular in-depth, like, what do you mean by a variable, what do you mean by data type. So these are all I mean, we are not in that stage to learn all of them. Let's get into the, like, the things, what are the important things into the shell scripting part, and learn them and proceed further. Okay, so once hello world is done, okay, the next, what you will learn in a typical programming language. Okay, so we learn about the variables. Okay, the variables nothing but type of the variables. It can be integer, like, float, character, blah blah blah. Okay, that is in the programming language. But when it comes to the um, Linux, right, shell scripting, there is no type. Okay, no typecasting. All are strings. All are strings, right? So vi uh, variable hello.sh. Okay, x equal to 10 echo x value is $x. Okay, what do you mean by this is, we will assign a value to a variable, okay, and print the variable value with the help of the dollar prefix. Okay, sh hello.sh. Can you see this? X value is 10, right? Now, similarly, we can assign a string to it. Okay, and run it. Can you see x value 10 and y value hello? Nothing but there is nothing like integer or string and all in the shell scripting. Everything is same. Everything is string on. Okay. Now let's try to perform some arithmetic operation. Okay. So before arithmetic operation, what I will do it, I'll try to read some input from the runtime. Enter the x value. Okay. Now I don't want to define the x value in the script. Instead of that, I wanted to read it from the runtime. So read is a keyword which is available in the script shell scripting. You can make use of this keyword to read an input at runtime and capture it in the variable. Okay, and try to print it. Now you see how it works. X value 56. Yes, can you see this? X value is 56. Is it reading it? So you have to enter a read statement immediately once you wanted to read something, right? So you can read a number of times. Now I don't want it to define y value here. I wanted to read it. Okay, so read y. uh, X value is hello. Okay, x value is hello, y value is how. Can you see this? Hello and how it is printing. Right, this is how you read the input from the command line. Okay, now you know how to define a variable. It can be integer or string. Now you know how to read from the runtime, okay, and how to make use of it. Right, now we'll see something more. Add.sh. I'm writing a new script, guys. Okay, this script is to, like, uh, perform arithmetic operations. Okay, I hope you know what you mean by arithmetic operations, right? Like addition, subtraction, multiplication, blah blah blah. So let me define x equal to 10, y is equal to 20. Okay, then z equal to $x plus $y, and echo total is $z. Guys, am I right? Is this logic correct? Forget about syntaxes. Is the logic correct? Am I doing the addition properly here? A simple thing. It's not such a program. Also, I mean, it's not a big program. It's a simple couple of lines addition. So let's try to run this and see what will happen. Sh add.sh. Okay, what is the total, guys? Can you see? Is it printing the 30? It's not printing 30. It's printing 10 plus 20. What do you mean by this is the shell script will default consider your variables as a strings. It is treating like a 1 and 0 characters plus 2 and 0 characters. That's it. It is not treating like a numerical values, right? So now you might be thinking, okay, then how do I do that? So whenever you wanted to perform some special things, okay, you can make use of the Linux commands. There is a command called expression, expr, in Linux. You can perform arithmetic operations. What is 2 plus 4? Expression 2 plus 4, nothing but 6. Okay, now 12 minus 4, 8. 12 multiplication 4, syntax error. The reason hashtag is having a special purpose in Linux or any Unix operating system, so you should escape it. Only for hashtag it is. Now 12 for the 48. Now what I will do it, this expression, I mean the command, this is the Linux command. This command I'm going to use it in the shell script. Okay, expr, give a space, right? Now whenever you are using a Linux command in a shell script, okay, that too in a evaluation statement, this is evaluation statement, okay, you should keep it in a backquotes, the statement. A backquote is a quote which is available on below of your escape button on your keyboard. If everybody is looking at your keyboard, look at the escape button. Below that you can find a key called backquote that has two more symbols. Okay, pipe symbol. I mean, I don't know what is there in your keyboard. This is a UK keyboard, so here it is a pipe symbol and a cap. Okay, so different keyboards will be having a different locations. Okay, so but it's called a backquote actually. So you keep it in the backquote and run add.sh. Can you see this now? Total value is 30. So it's doing actual numerical operation now. So now you can perform anything. So in add.sh, now if you want to perform the multiplication, you can perform the multiplication. Now 20 into 10, it should be 200. 220, right? Now I want to advance this. I don't want to define it here. I want to read at runtime. Okay. Echo enter x, read x. Okay. Echo enter y, read y. Sh add.sh. 123, 134. So 123 into 14. Okay, it should be 1722. I don't know. You calculate it, but it should be right. Okay, so this is working, and now you can perform any arithmetic operation. It can be addition, subtraction, multiplication. So simple, right? Guys, did you find any difficulty in this simple script? We introduced a Linux command in the shell script. That's the reason I said shell scripting is all about combination of Linux commands plus control structures. That's it. Okay, this is just an example to tell what is the shell scripting. Fine. So let's proceed further with a few more things. Now we have seen the variables. Okay. Uh, read variable. Okay. Read to runtime reading params. Okay. Next, after this, typically we'll be working on the conditions. Okay. So conditions, nothing but you might be knowing in a programming language, like if you wanted to know the biggest number in a given two numbers. Okay. So you use the if condition, right? So let's see those if conditions. So typically we have the three types of ifs. If anybody remember the C language or Java language, any programming language, doesn't matter. We have three types of if. One is a simple if, okay, and another is the if else, okay, and another is the nested if. Okay, let's see all these three types of ifs in the shell scripting. Okay, so in shell scripting the syntax differs a bit. If.sh, how look at this, echo if condition example. Just a print statement, guys, nothing else. Okay, so echo enter a, read a, echo enter b, read b. Now I read two variables. Okay, now I'm writing a simple if condition. So this is how you write if condition. There is no normal braces, it's just square braces, and after if there should be a space. Okay, if $a is greater than $b, okay, then there is no curly brace, it should be then. Okay, then echo $a is bigger than $b. Okay, right, that's it. Fi nothing but end of the if, which is a reverse of if, which is fi. So let's see how it works. Sh if.sh, 12 is a, 10 is b. Yes, 12 is bigger than 10, that's correct, right? Now 10, 12, 10 is bigger than 12, is it correct? No, it's wrong. So your script is not working as expected. Okay, it is having some issue. So we need to sort out what exactly the issue about your script, right? So the issue is we use the operators like greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, not equal to. These are not the right operators, guys. Okay, so the actual operators in the shell scripting are the greater than is represented with the -gt. Okay, and less than is represented with the -lt. Okay, and greater than or equal to is represented with the -ge. Okay, you might be thinking what is ge? Greater than, equal. This is how you need to read. Less than, less, t nothing but then, g nothing but greater, t nothing but then. Okay, and this is less than or equal to nothing but -le, and this is equal to. Okay, and this is not equal. Okay, so you have this separate operators in the shell scripting. So let's make use of that operator. Vi hyphen greater than. Okay, now let's try to run this. 12, 10. This is correct. Now let's see the reverse one. 10, 12. Is it printing anything? Nothing but it's working fine. Your if condition is proper. Okay, now the same if condition, you just make one more change, that will become the second type of if. Okay, now what you wanted to do it, else echo $b is bigger than $a. That's it. This is the second type of. Now what will happen if this condition is false? It will go to the else block. Okay, if this condition is true, it will go into the then block. So it will definitely execute any one of the statement for sure. Now run this. 123. Okay, 12, 123. 123 is bigger than 12. Now 123, sorry, 11. 12 is bigger than 11, of course. 56, 98. So I enter as hash, guys, so that's the reason there is an error. 78, 97. 97 is bigger than 78. So you could able to successfully execute this now. This is called if else. Okay. Now there can be a different requirement from the people to check the multiple conditions. Okay. So to verify the multiple conditions, there is another if is there, which is called nested if. So let's try to write another script instead of disturbing that. So what I will do, I'll write a simple calculator program using this. Okay. So echo enter A, read A, enter B, read B, echo enter A, enter B, read A, read B, enter operation. Okay. Now read OP. What I'm trying to do is I'm checking operation. If operation is equal to add, so we need to pass three parameters this time. Okay. If it is equal to add, then what I will do it, I will say z equal to expression $A plus $B. I'll do the addition operation, right? Now if operation is $OP is subtraction, okay, then I wanted to perform subtraction. Okay. Now if operation is multiplication, I'm just copy pasting this. Okay, right? You do the multiplication. Now you're done with all the conditions. Now if other than add, subtraction, multiplication, if they enter anything, right, that will go into the else block. So all of them should be elif. Okay. Now at the end it should end with the else block, and you can type anything here. Okay. So wrong operator, something like this. F5, your if will be closed. This is called nested if. So you can write n number of ifs, but your if should end with else and F5. Okay, you must have else and F5 at the end. All right. Now let's see how it works. You might be thinking, why did I use this operator instead of like, okay, guys, these are operators only for the numerics. Okay. Now what I'm comparing now? I'm comparing a string. If it is a string, you have to make use of this and this for sure. Don't use the equal and not equal. Equal and not equal for the numericals. Okay. I mean EQ, NE is for the numericals, and these two operators for the string operators. Okay. These are the numerical operators. sh nested.sh. Okay. Enter A 123, 134. I want to perform a addition. Okay, sorry, it is executing, but only thing is we are not printing the output, right? So we have to print the z value at the end. We are not printing the z value. Echo total is $z. 123, 134, add. What is the total? Okay, 123 plus 14, 137, it's correct. Okay, now 12, 12 multiplication, 12 into 12, 144, it's correct. 34, 23, I just entered some wrong one. So can you see wrong operator output? And you don't see any total of it if it is a wrong operator. So this is how you typically use the nested if. In these kind of conditions, you will be using the nested if operator in the shell scripting. Okay. So with this, we are done with the typical variables. Okay. And there's no typecasting and all are strings. Only thing is, if you want to perform some numerical operations, we use a Linux shell command called expression. Okay. And these are all the operators, numerical operators, right? So yeah, so with this we are done with the conditions, guys. Okay. Now after the conditions, what else you learn in a programming language? Just recollect your learnings from any programming language. It can be C, Java, C Sharp, whatever. You go in a flow, right? First hello world, okay, then variables, then conditions, blah 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 blah. The same flow which you go to the scripting as well. Okay, so I'll just stop it for today. So tomorrow we'll see the next block of things, which are the loops and switch case. Okay, then after that, functions. Okay, then after that, few more command and arguments, blah blah blah. So we'll see all of them. So do you have any questions still here? Yeah, I'll share the video, don't worry about it. So any questions in the today's session? Were you able to follow?